Welcome. It is Friday, May 10th, 2024. So glad you could join me as I talk about the latest articles related to growth and marketing. I hope you all have terrific plans for the weekend, but right now we're talking about growth in marketing and how to grow your business. Yesterday, I kicked off a conversation about the need for open and honest communication and provided a couple of examples on how to do that. Today, I'm sharing two articles that show why it's so important, how it actually influences growth and retention. First up, Forrester asks, are B2B buyers cowards? So that's a very provocative title, so I'm interested to take a look at that. Retently looks into the causes of customer churn. And so both of these articles tie in nicely with the idea of communication and building trust. Then we wrap up. Dickie Bush shares Starbucks brand failure, and it's pretty basic. So this should be instructive on what not to do in terms of driving growth. And then finally, Asling discusses the dangers of listening too much. So excited to jump in here. Let's get started. Okay, here's this article from Forrester where they say, are B2B buyers cowards? And why do they say that? Buyers in B2B organizations are in a precarious position. They must make weighty financial decisions for their extended organization and on behalf of their colleagues. Unlike individual consumers, they must balance their personal risk tolerance and sometimes their career prospects along the interests of their employer. Making the wrong decision can have significant consequences. So, unlike your individual decisions, your B2B buying decisions could have major impacts on both your organization and your career. So, people are nervous about making these decisions. As a result, risk and trust loom large in the minds of B2B buyers and have a significant impact on how they act. One consequence is that buyers at B2B companies frequently make defensive decisions, selecting the safest choice over all other options. In Forrester's Business Trust Survey, an astonishing 43% of B2B buyers admitted they make defensive purchase decisions more than 70% of the time. So people they're concerned about risk. They want to make sure that the product they select, they're not as concerned that it's the best product. They're more concerned that it meets the needs. And so this is why open and honest communication is so important. We have to build that trust. No matter how big a game a buyer talks, less than a third of all buyers are risk tolerant, making less than 30% of defensive decisions. So this is why I stress this so much. I mean, sometimes it may seem like esoteric that I'm talking about open and honest communication, but because B2B buyers are making their decisions based on avoiding risk, trusting who they're purchasing from is critical. And that's why we have to always be we have to present an image where like we are a trusted brand. And so they go on to say, trust is the remedy to risk. And so that's what I'm saying. B2B buyers aren't cowardly, but rational and persistent. They understand the risk involved in making decisions on the behalf of others, and they feel the weight of this responsibility. Trust bridges the gap between a risk-averse buyer and a potential vendor. Why? Because trust pays. B2B buyers who trust a company are almost twice as likely to recommend that company externally or to pay a premium to work with that company than those who do not trust a company. And they go on to say, they put together these 7 layers of trust. This is a graphic they created. And so the 7 layers are accountability, consistency, competence, dependability, empathy, integrity, and transparency. So this just really highlights that people are making B2B buying decisions based on trust. And then how do you actually do it? By doing what you say you're going to do and being honest in your communication. And so, again, this is why I stress the need for this open and honest communication so much, because we really need to buy trust. And it's a key part of that. Okay, let's take a look at this article from Retently. And they go into the 3 leading causes of customer churn. And I like this article because they actually share data in terms of what causes churn. And so the 3 things they identified are poor onboarding, weak relationship building, and poor customer service. And I really like this discussion around poor onboarding. I think this is definitely an area of opportunity for many organizations. And Retently addresses it this way. In their struggle to attract new customers and juice up revenue, many brands end up losing sight of the existing audience. while the moment to care for them is actually starting with the onboarding stage. This is when customers are excited to learn more about your offering and put effort into make it work towards their goal. And so poor onboarding results in 23% of the average customer churn. And so Retently says you can avoid early frustrations by learning more about customer requirements, predicting their needs, and guiding their way towards the expected outcome from your product. And so this is, again, why I get back to communication. Because if you think about churn, at some level, it's someone did not communicate well. Either the sales team oversold with the product capabilities, or the customer didn't define their requirements well, but it's a communication failure. People aren't getting their needs met, their expectations met because of poor communication. And so we really must address this. This is like fundamental to growth. And so while it's not some growth hack that's going to immediately drive a ton of new leads, this is one of the foundational elements that will lead to transformational growth. If you set out the right pace, opt for straightforward communication, proactive in your attempts to convert simple features into business benefits, it will definitely add up to your long-term customer base. And so then they move on to say, to avoid disappointments from an early stage, make sure you have a clear and aligned message across all of your promotional channels. Be honest about your product's capabilities and share realistic timelines regarding new features. So this is just really emphasizing the whole point around communication. Then they go on to say weak relationship building is the number 2 cause of churn and accounts for 16% of it. Weak relationship building accounts for 16% of the average customer churn. The key is to make them feel listened to and cared for, as well as understanding they're working with a proactive and professional team that always strives to provide the best customer experience. And so communication is a key part of providing this excellent customer experience. So Retently provides some graphs on how important customer experience is. If you provide excellent customer experience, customers are 94% likely to purchase. Very poor, only 20% of consumers are likely to repurchase. And then it goes down, likely to recommend, 94% if it's excellent, only 13% if it's very poor, which is kind of surprising. Honestly, if you had a very poor experience, I don't think I'd recommend it at all. Anyway, so this really highlights the idea that we have to communicate what our product can do honestly. You can't let the sales team oversell. You can't let marketing oversell the product. But you also have to build up that communication so you understand what the prospect is actually looking for, because this is very directly related to churn. If you communicate what you can do and they express their need in an honest way, and if you meet that need based on that, then they're not going to churn. All right, next I want to share this post from Dickie Bush. He says, "Sorry, we're out of cups. That was my interaction at Starbucks today, and it left me with an important life and business reminder. Like coffee cups?" I asked back to the barista. "Yeah, we forgot to order more last week," which seems so basic. You got to have cups. As I walked out without my caffeine fix, I couldn't help to think to myself, how could Starbucks possibly run out of coffee cups? Behind coffee beans, the cups have to be the second most important thing on the supplies list. Now, I wasn't totally surprised because the Starbucks is usually a bit all over the place. Long lines, messy store, tons of employee turnover. Now, this post, I loved it because it reminds me so much of the Jeff Bezos quote where he says, "Your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room." And this is literally an example of it. So Starbucks brand here is poor operation. Dickie Bush is sharing this on LinkedIn. And so the brand is this poor operation, long lines, messy store, tons of employee turnover. So it doesn't matter how good their coffee was or the store experience. This is his takeaway. And this is an important lesson for all of us in terms of growth. You could have a terrific product. You could have great marketing. It could look beautiful. But your brand is all the customer interactions. That's why that Jeff Bezos quote's so great, because that's what they're saying about you is your brand. And so you need to think about the experience all the way through. You can't let a failure bring down your brand. Okay, now I want to wrap up with this post from Danny Asling. And this is about how you can be too responsive to customer feedback. The founder listened to customers too much. They nearly killed the business. Would come in on a Monday morning and the entire product roadmap would have been flipped on its head. It was chaos. And it all because they received a single customer request over the weekend. Now, I'm sure we've all had interactions like this at our companies where people are super responsive to individual customers. And it's just not a way to grow a business. It's not effective. And he says, truth is, most of the time you need to ignore customer requests to not treat every piece of feedback equally and to avoid investing resource into every single request. And he has a few pieces of advice on how to do this. First of all, show appreciation for all customer feedback that you receive. Communicate a clear roadmap with your customers. Clarify why some requests can't be met today and why you're moving forward with others. Keep your focus on figuring out the root cause. Don't obsess over the symptoms. The best teams read the subtext. Find the themes. Are the problems repeated in multiple conversations? Are they showing up in several channels? Debate. Don't take one person's word for it. A customer, the CEO, or anyone for that matter. Challenge them. Drive those debates with real customer calls and insight. And so the other thing that I would add to this is that it's so important for your company to define its vision and how they meet customer needs. Like have a very clear vision definition. And that will eliminate a lot of these conversations because you'll be able to go in and get the customer request and say, does this meet with our vision? No, then we're just going to move on from it and not debate it at all. So if you define that clear vision up front, it will make it much more efficient to understand what your company needs to say no to. Not everything is going to be a debate because there are going to be a lot of things that are just not aligned with your vision. And so that's a big factor why it's so important to define your vision. It's not just what you say yes to, it's also what you say no to, and ultimately will help you drive growth much more effectively. 3 points related to growth today. 1, have open and honest communication. It helps establish trust, which is critical in the buying process, and creates a better customer experience, which is very important for retention. 2, make sure when you think about your brand, you think about all of your customer interactions. As Jeff Bezos says, your brand is what people say when you're not in the room. One failure can cause your brand to really be diminished, and that will be their takeaway. And 3, when responding to customer feedback, make sure it's aligned with your vision. Define your vision, and that will help you understand what to say yes to, and almost as importantly, what to say no to. All right, have a great day.